Can you find love just by using your phone?
Or are they actually killing romance in many ways? Let's speak to journalist and author Louise Perry. She says dating apps create a consequence-free environment which enables everything from bad behaviour right up the scale to sexual assault. However, dating expert and psychologist Jo Hemming says dating apps have several advantages. I suppose possibly all of the above is true. But Louise, let's start with you, because you actually believe that probably on balance this is benefiting men in particular and perhaps puts women back. Would you say that's a fair analysis?
I'd say it benefits a small minority of men. One of the things you see on dating apps, which is quite interesting, and it is in a way one of their advantages, that they give us access to a lot of data on how people behave in dating, which is very interesting just from an academic perspective. It's a small minority of men who get pretty much all of the matches. So on Tinder, I think it's the top 10% of the most attractive men get 60% of matches from women, whereas men who are less attractive are basically getting no attention at all, often left very frustrated by using dating apps and you know, like terribly failing in their efforts to find a partner. But this top 10% of men, they're having a whale of a time. You know, they've got pick of the bunch. They can go, you know, meet up with a new woman every night potentially. And I think the problem with that is that it does encourage bad behaviour from those men. And we hear so many stories from women who, you know, ghosting is routine, just general kind of really crude behaviour, like the way that men will introduce themselves on apps can often be really rude, really explicit from the get-go, asking for nudes straight away. You know, it's a really kind of savage and quite hyper-masculine environment, which is, I think, to do with the fact that you've got this massive inequality among men, and that you've got some men who are have an amazing amount of choice and some men who have none whatsoever. And that inequality encourages the popular men to misbehave, basically the alphas to misbehave, and this is why you've got
Louise, I'm interested in this. You're making. I don't know anything about this, but is it a male-only environment? Is it a format that is to the advantage of men rather than women?
To some men, yeah, and I think that's why. I mean, so Tinder is now famously a hookup app, right? Despite the fact that there are some people, as you say quite rightly, who found marriage partners and so on Tinder. That's its reputation. And what keeps happening actually with new dating apps coming on the market, because there are so many now, is that the new ones will always come along and will pitch themselves as, oh no, this is the woman-friendly app. This is the one that's all about long-term relationships. This is about connection and intimacy.
Louise,
but it always ends up coming out like Tinder in the end.
Because we're fast approaching the end of the programme. Jo Hemming, dating expert and psychologist, though, you may tend to disagree with that, and you have used dating apps yourself in the past.
I have, but more importantly, I'm a dating coach, so I have several clients use dating apps. The thing, we use the word Tinder, it's generic, really, for a lot of dating apps. There are some great dating apps out there, some bad dating apps out there, but much of it is how you use it. So all they do is that they enable bad behaviour. If you're going to be badly behaved, dating apps just allow you to sort of navigate that. So you've got to use them mindfully. You've got to master them. You've got to narrow down your requirements. You've got to get the right app. You've got to use it purposefully. I say to my clients, persevere, because there are some, you know, bad guys out there. But if you use them wisely and beat them at their own game, there's an inherent conflict here, because dating apps want you to find someone, but they also want to keep you on the app.
Yes.
So if you know a little bit about how the algorithm might work, also pay. Don't use it as a free service. You get much closer matches if you pay.
You see, we're old-fashioned in the sense that we were both married before these apps came around, but I think the same rule of thumb for me would apply if I were to go on it, in that I would never go for the jock-type character that Louise was describing there, because of exactly that. In the old days, it was always the same. It was the rugby boys at university. They got all the girls, they slept around, they cheated on you, the bad behaviour was off the scale. You always go for the ones just below the absolute.
Yes, sorry. You can eliminate.
And it sounds like that's where you're going to find love, through these apps. No offence to my hubby.
At this stage, I'd love a picture of a husband to flash up on screen, who incidentally is a good-looking boy. It has to be said. I don't believe you practice what you preach there, but anyway.
My little trick is, when you're going through an app, instead of just mindlessly swiping, there's a fast swipe thing. Don't do that. Just imagine someone has said to one of your friends has said, this is my friend Mark, this is my friend Bill,
Yes.
this is my friend James. It makes you pause for a second if you think, oh, I'll have a closer look at that person. It's the fast swipe, and then you see someone cute and it's a fast swipe right. And you're just ending up creating your own narrative, actually, in some cases. You can change that.
So, Louise, are they the road to nowhere, basically, or is there a way that they can be reformed, these dating apps?
I think that this point that what the apps make money from is you being on them is a really, really good one, right? They're not actually designed to have people, you know, straight away meet the person of their dreams and then never use the app again because they're happily married, right? They are designed to kind of keep people going, and the success rate is really very poor in terms of like the number of people who are on these apps versus the number of people who actually end up having sexual relationships at the end. But they do give the impression of amazing optionality. You know, you've got access to thousands of people potentially, particularly if you're in a big city. The problem is exactly right, this encouraging to swipe, the anonymity, the bad behaviour, the general feeling as though there's always someone else on Tinder. You know, if you want to just kind of ditch a new relationship because it's not quite working, there's always someone else available at the click of a button. I think that actually encourages people to not invest in relationships, which is what you need to do if you're actually going to find a long-term match.
Louise, finally and briefly, are they not a better alternative to loneliness?
Yes, but then I'd say that, you know, people used to find partners, and also, I mean, you can look at the graph in terms of how people used to meet people, and everyone's just flocking to dating apps. But those old methods do still exist. You can still meet people at work. You can still meet people through friends and through family and through hobbies. And dating apps might seem a bit easier in that they're right there on your phone, but actually the other methods tend to be more reliable.
Okay, Jo, would you agree?
Yes, I think, but the thing about it is the toxicity of dating apps that Louise is talking about is a very London thing. It's a very city thing.
Is it?
If you live in a town or a village, you haven't got queues of people, the next one. If you live in a town, particularly, it's very good to meet somebody. That there are limited numbers. People will not relate to this at all if they live outside a city, because it's just a very different...